Located in Central Africa, Uganda is famous for its hot and arid climate. This land is teeming with buffaloes, giraffes, and elephants. Moreover, this place is also home to many dangerous predators such as lions, leopards, and African wild dogs. They are ready to attack Ed at any moment if he intrudes on their territory. Let's see how he will survive in this harsh environment. Even before the adventure began, the temperature was already soaring. As he sat in the helicopter on his way to the drop-off point, he immediately took off his shorts. Sticking to the principle of bringing no food, no survival tools, and not even having any hair, he promised to live comfortably here, as if he were on vacation. But as soon as he set foot on the ground, the scorching sun gave him a harsh lesson. Heat stroke and dehydration were the two major challenges he needed to overcome. On his way, he discovered traces of resting buffalo, indicating that a water source was not far away. Just as he predicted, Ed found a muddy waterhole. Without hesitation, he drank it straight away, despite the strong stench of mud and cow dung. The sun here was even harsher than in the Arctic, so Ed smeared wet mud all over his body to protect himself from the heat. He chose to build a shelter under a large tree with plenty of shade. But not far from him stood a buffalo. Feeling unsafe, Ed shouted loudly to scare it away. Startled, the buffalo bolted and ran off into the distance. He quickly gathered grass from the surroundings to weave a delicate grass skirt. Since the weather was still manageable, there was no urgent need to build a shelter. However, to prevent attacks from wild animals, the best course of action was to start a fire. He began his usual task, but for the first time, he faced difficulties in making fire. He rubbed the wooden piece until it had a hole in it, yet there was still no spark in sight. But Ed didn't give up. He kept rubbing against the dry tree trunk, and soon, a thin wisp of white smoke appeared. With a gentle blow, the fire from the pile of straw suddenly flared up. After finishing his task, the sun began to set. At night, Ed sat by the fire, listening carefully to the sounds around him, fearing that a fierce water buffalo might suddenly charge at him. The next morning, Ed woke up looking exhausted from a sleepless night. He planned to head to the water hole to wash his face, but from a distance, he saw that a herd of buffalo had taken over the spot. With no other choice, he had to wait until they finished drinking. However, when Ed arrived, the buffalo had already drained every last drop of water. As if mocking him, they lingered for a moment before moving on. With no other choice, he sighed and set off in search of another water source. Luckily, not far from there, he discovered a natural water hole. Using grass, he wiped away the algae floating on the surface and drank as much as he could to quench his thirst. Quenching his thirst lifted his spirits significantly. Feeling refreshed, he gathered a large amount of wood to use as fuel for the fire. The midday temperature here was extremely high. To avoid dehydration and heat stroke, he applied a layer of mud as sunscreen before setting off on his journey. Without any containers to store water, he drank as much as he could until his stomach was full. Not wanting to waste energy, he crafted a torch to keep the fire alive. Once everything was ready, he slung his belongings over his shoulder and ventured into the unexplored land. Aside from the water buffalo, this area is also home to more than 30 dangerous creatures, including massive crocodiles and the terrifying black spitting cobra. But that didn't make Ed hesitate. With years of survival experience in harsh environments like this, he pushed forward with confidence and determination. After 6 exhausting hours of walking, Ed finally reached the vast body of water he had been hoping for. Here, the vegetation was lush and vibrant, with many species of animals thriving in the area. Worried that his new neighbors might not welcome him, he quickly started a fire, sending a clear message: "Don't come near unless you want to end up roasted." Feeling thirsty, Ed Stafford headed to the riverbank to replenish his precious supply of fresh water. The water tasted sweet and refreshing, 100 times better than the trampled, foul-smelling puddles left behind by the herd of buffalo. While searching for a place to set up camp, Ed stumbled upon a wild tree he couldn't quite identify. Curious, he tasted a small piece and was surprised by its delicious sweet and sour flavor, packed with vitamins beneficial for the body. If anyone knows what this fruit is, let me know in the comments. After that, he found a dense bush surrounded by thorns, which could help keep predators away, making it a perfect spot to set up camp. At night, Ed slept soundly inside, without worrying about wild animals disturbing him. Time passed, and the fourth day arrived. Throughout the night, the symphony of hippos made his experience here far from pleasant. So, he decided to search for a new area to explore and set up camp. As he walked along the river, his path was blocked by a hippo. Despite their chubby and harmless appearance, hippos can reach speeds of up to 30 kilometers per hour, and a full force charge from one is no different from being hit by a truck. Suddenly, a young hippo locked eyes with him, making him panic and consider running away. However, the hippo quickly retreated on its own. Turns out, his bald head was intimidating enough to scare it off. On his quest for protein, he noticed a patch of cacti growing in the area. These weren't native plants, but had been cultivated by local herders to serve as protective fences for their livestock. Cactus fruit is an excellent source of carbohydrates. Carefully picking 3 of them, he peeled the skin and enjoyed them like eating a kiwi. When combined with dill, it created a simple yet delicious meal. Not far from there, he spotted 2 guinea fowls. To catch them, he gathered tree bark nearby and crafted a few ropes using his weaving skills. Using branches as springs and the ropes as snares, he set up a trap. He carefully placed the bait in a spot likely to attract the prey. Once the prey stepped into the trap, Ed Stafford would have a delicious roasted chicken meal to enjoy. Additionally, he also set his sights on an underwater food source. Using a large bundle of reed stalks, he crafted a simple trap in an enclosed area near the river. He dug up a few white termites to use as bait. Easy to enter, but hard to escape. Everything was ready. Now, all that was left was to wait for the prey to enter the trap. Over the next few days, he stayed busy gathering berries and checking his traps, but there were no results. Ed's body gradually became malnourished, causing his brain to slow down and his muscles to ache. Not wanting to live like this forever, he decided to pack his belongings and set off in search of a new land. On his journey, he unexpectedly encountered a shy monkey. Thinking quickly, Ed chased after it, only to realize that he had accidentally stepped into a new area, a true paradise for wildlife. His presence made the animals feel threatened. Not far from him, a herd of elephants loomed in the distance. Ed carefully hid and observed their actions. Suddenly, one of them raised its trunk and pointed directly at him, making him realize he had been spotted. However, that didn't deter Ed. He continued walking, taking in the breathtaking scenery around him. He felt so small before this vast world. Many days had passed without a proper meal. He set out in search of food as his stomach growled with hunger. Wading into a nearby pond, Ed never expected to catch a catfish weighing about a kilogram. The unexpected success filled him with excitement. His joy doubled when he managed to catch an even bigger fish from the pond. After days of hunger and thirst, he could finally feel proud. Wasting no time, he returned to camp and set up a simple roasting rack. One fish was sliced and smoked, while the other was grilled over the fire for about 10 minutes. The aroma of perfectly cooked fish filled the air. Each bite was just right, crispy on the outside, tender on the inside, bringing him pure bliss. Time passed quickly, and the final day had arrived. He packed up his belongings and made his way to the rendezvous point. As the helicopter approached, he knew he had officially completed his challenge.